So firstly, thank you to all of you who sent in a question. It was really, really interesting to read your questions, hear your feedback and what you've taken away from the first two episodes. Putting content out there that you're finding helpful and valuable and useful and practical is really my mission. So hearing that that's working for you is great. So if you have missed those first two episodes, I really recommend that you go and check them out. The first one looked at websites that work, and the second one was all about how do you get your website found by the right people online. So those two really went together. So do go and take the time to listen to those. If you are building your website, if you have any kind of online presence, you're going to find those really helpful. And today we're going to go through the questions. So the first question was a great one. So the first question was, how was it creating a website in 1996 when most people didn't have access to the internet? They didn't really understand what it was. What were the technical difficulties of that time? And how did people perceive the web? Because even now, there are still a lot of people who, when you say the word website, don't even know what that means. So brilliant question. And it was really fun to go back and think about what was it like at that time. So I created my first website in 1996. And the biggest challenge, the biggest technical challenge at the time was I didn't have a computer. I didn't have a computer when I first started my job. So my first motivation was, if I create a website, they have to give me a computer to do my work on. So that was my prime motivation, and it worked. And so convincing my boss that we should have a website was actually very easy. He was an entrepreneur. I was very fortunate to work alongside him for 4 years. So I learned so much about what it takes to build and grow a business, and also when it's a good idea to jump in and say yes and try something out. A lot of the things we tried didn't work. Some of my ideas, I thought, oh, this is brilliant, and he gave me the space to run with that. And it didn't always work, but often it did, and we had amazing results. And this was one of those occasions. So I went to him and I said, when I was at university, we were starting to use websites. It's all about giving access to information about our company to anyone who wants to find it and make us easier to find it online. And of course, at that time, not many people were looking online, but being an entrepreneur, he loved the idea of being ahead of the curve and having a website. So he said, yes, got my computer, and I was ready to go. But of course, I had no idea how to create a website. So I commissioned an agency to help me create that. But the agency I chose for a specific reason, because I wanted them to teach me how to create it, how to maintain it at the same time. So we worked together to create the wireframe. So wireframe is the basic layout, what's going to go where on your website, how is it going to be constructed. So a bit like an architect's blueprint. So we discussed what needed to be where, what the navigation was going to be like, where that navigation was going to be, because the navigation at that time wasn't fixed. There were no fixed patterns. It could be anywhere. It could be at the top, on the side, in the middle, at the bottom, all over the place. For us, the navigation was in the middle. It was a contract furnishing company I was working with. We worked with a lot of property developers. So we had 3 different colored doors on the front, and you could click on a door and walk through that door to find out the information on that particular part of our work. There was also navigation, I think it was at the top, so we got that bit right. Looking back to that website, we did get an awful lot right. I think the structure we had there came to me almost naturally. That was my degree was in design management. How do you communicate graphically with people and start building relationships in meaningful ways through your content and imagery? So that was my degree. So this website was a natural progression of that. So I had some ideas of what to do. So we created the first website using Microsoft Front Page, and Microsoft Front Page was a kind of a cross, I guess, between Word and PowerPoint. You put things where you wanted, and then you hit publish, and that was it. Ta-da! It appeared on the internet, and it worked with hyperlinks and things. So it was so easy compared to the tools that we have today. Bring back Front Page, that's what I say. It was really so simple. The other technical challenge was that most people didn't have access to the internet. So what happened was my boss, the CEO, and the sales team were going to the website, printing off the pages, faxing those to their clients. And that's how we use the internet. Not many people were actually accessing it at all. We were found on search engines. The search engines back then were very basic and a world away from what we have today, but we were quite easy to find, but people weren't really looking. So we were printing off the pages. But what was helpful for the sales team was if someone had any questions, they could go to the internet and find the information they needed quickly. So we did have the information in our brochures, they had the information on our computers and file systems, but they weren't as easy back then as they are today. So information was there somewhere on the computer, but they didn't know how to find it. They weren't technical people like you had to be to use a computer back in those days. So that was difficult, but the website for them was easy. So probably the biggest role for our internet back then wasn't for our clients, but actually for our team. And it enabled us to bring information together, put pictures together with the information, and they were then feeding back to me, oh, these are the questions we're being asked by our clients. Can we put that on the internet so we can send them to that website page? We didn't have anything like videos in those days. YouTube didn't exist. So putting a video online was very expensive because you'd have to have special equipment. You'd have to have a company come in and film that for you and storyboard it and edit it. Videos then had to be amazing. It wasn't like videos today, like this, if you're watching on YouTube, information was just text and a few small images. It was dial-up. The internet was slow, so you had to keep it light. So very different to anything we have today. But creating that first website and working with the agency to understand how to do that has given me a really solid foundation of how to create websites even today. How they work, how people interact with this information hasn't changed. So I think that foundation really helped. And after that, I managed several websites with other companies that I worked with. I worked in internal communications. So there I was working with intranets and how people around me, my colleagues, were interacting with that information. So that was the same but different. It was a different strategy, a different thinking. And since then I've written hundreds of websites. So yes, websites in 96 were very different, but you could have a lot of fun with it. And I think, as I say, that foundational understanding has really helped me going forward. But it's been very amusing going back and seeing them printing off web pages and faxing them to people. Yeah, it's hard to imagine that these days, isn't it? So the next question is, would you give your website another name today? Why did you use Melitta Campbell and not another name? Would you still choose that? Is this better than another title name? Great question. So when I started my first business nearly 15 years ago now, I was well known locally here in Switzerland as a communications expert. So it made the most sense for me to use my name. And I think it's always great practice, particularly if you have a unique name, to buy your name.com anyway. And the thing with your domain name, you can have as many different domain names as you want and point them all to the same website. So I have melittacampbell.com, but I've also bought lots of other names and they all point back to the same website. So I haven't, but I should buy drivenfemaleentrepreneur.com and then point that specifically to the page on my website for this podcast, for example. So you can have different domain names and point them all to the same website. You don't have to have lots of different websites. You can customize that. You can customize the first page they see when they use these different domain names, but it's still the same complete website behind that. So I could have melittacampbellspeaker.com, for example, and have that just point to my speaker page. But from there, they can still access all the rest of the information about me and my books and my business, because anyone who's interested in me as a speaker would probably be also interested in knowing a little bit more about me, what I do, who I work with, and so on. So you can buy multiple domain names. I would keep melittacampbell.com because that's my brand. So my business has evolved. Now I'm in my third business. I've been able to keep melittacampbell.com. Yeah, I think if you have a unique name, it's an easy website to have and people can find you if they know your name. If you are better known for your brand, perhaps it makes more sense to have that. If you're better known for your expertise or your area of work. So although I'm a business coach, the way I work with my clients has over time led me to be known as the value whisperer. So I could have the valuewhisperer.com and again, point it to the same website. So I think it's good to have everything that you're known for, and you can use these different contexts depending on what you're talking about. You have a specific domain name that makes it easy for them to find you. So say you talk a lot about mental health for companies, maybe you have mentalhealthforcompanies.com. And when you're talking about it, it's easy for people to remember. So you can play around with the names, but you don't have to have just one. I would personally keep my name and then play around with other titles, but see what's relevant for you, what you're known for, what your clients search for. There's no one simple black and white answer, but hopefully that has given you some ideas. So next question, how do I get visitors to stay on my website or come back? Great question, because this does impact your SEO. Then if people come to your website and they're clicking around, they're spending time on there, that definitely tells the search engine that you offer a quality, valuable experience. Now, it could be that people are just very lost, but usually they would click away if your website is just too frustrating. So we're going to assume that if people are staying on your website, it's for the right reasons. So things you can do, for sure, make your website interesting and relevant for your dream clients. So you absolutely need to know who your ideal clients are, what they are interested in, what's relevant to their solution, what their values are. The more information you can find out about your clients, the more relevant and interesting you can make your content for them. So that is one thing that's going to make them come back to your website, come to your website, stay on your website. The other thing is to have information that's regularly updated. So if you have a blog or a podcast, they know that if they come on a regular basis, then they're going to get new content. Or if your content is just so useful or so complete that anytime they have a question, they will go to your website because they know or they believe they will find the answer there. So it becomes part of their toolkit. It becomes a resource for them. And that brings me to the final point on this, which is to create killer content. So this is content that people use on a regular basis. So when I was managing intranets, for example, the killer content was not any kind of news. It was what food is being served in the canteen today and the telephone directory. So if we had an important message, we made sure that we put a little banner on those two pages because that's where people went every day. So you can think about, for your ideal clients, is there some content that they would want to refer to every day, every week, every month, however often, that you can put on your website to make it a resource for them, and then use that wisely. There are some websites that you go to, I'm sure you've been to these, and it's hard to find the information you want. You know it's on there, but there are so many adverts. It's really hard to see the information or to find it. So you don't want to abuse that page, but make that page a resource for your clients or your industry. And then you can put well-placed adverts or information on there to guide them to where you want them to be. So interesting and relevant. Keep that information updated and consider adding in some killer content onto there. And of course, make it amusing, educational, earn people's time as well. So think about what would make it worth people spending time on your website. So that's always a great question to ask. Like, as you're creating something, is this worth my ideal client spending however long it would take to consume that particular piece of content? But again, to do that, you need to know who your ideal clients are. That's so important with your website. Don't even begin to create a website unless you have that information. So the next question, can I create a website on my own? Yes, of course you can. There are lots of tools that make this very easy. It would depend on several things. How much time do you have? Because they take a lot of time. And if you're doing this for the first time, then however long you think it's going to take you, times that by 10. It depends on your level of technical expertise as to what option would be great for you to do. It depends on your determination, because as I say, it takes a while. There's a lot of things to figure out. There are a lot of things that you'll do and it should work, doesn't work, and you don't know why it doesn't work. So you have to have a certain amount of tenacity. So if you think, yes, I have the time, I have the tenacity, have a little bit of technical expertise, or I'm willing to learn, then absolutely go with it. So you want to plan out your structure and content first. So as we talked about this earlier with the wireframe, looking at what you want to tell people, refining that so it's really as precise as it can be. Online, people are on a mission. They don't come online just to browse around. They come online to get answers to a specific question. And then they find a website that they think has that information. And what they do is they scan it first. They then grab the information they want and they go. So they don't hang around too much unless you have information that's really helpful, interesting, and so on, as we were just talking about. So you really want to plan out your structure and your content. It's a little bit like cooking a recipe, and you can follow the recipe and do the steps as you go, or you can get all the ingredients ready first. You can read your recipe so you know what's going on and then start cooking. It's much easier that way. So it's a little bit like that. Plan out your content, plan out your structure, put it all together, and then go and think about, okay, well, what platform would be right for this structure and this content? So there are lots of simple tools you can use. You can start with social media. Just have a social media page instead of a website. It's much quicker, much easier to get started. You can already start engaging and having a conversation with your clients, because that's, your website is not a shop window, it's a reception desk. You're inviting people into a conversation. You welcome them into your business. You're helping them orientate themselves, like, is this the right person for me? Do they offer what I need? Is this a solution? You're not just pushing information out there, you're communicating. Communication is information and how people interact and use that information. So really think that through so you can create something that is starting to build a relationship with the people that come to your website. So you can use social media. You can create a Google My Business page, which is really quick and easy to do. It's completely free. And with a Google My Business page, if people are Googling for you or what you do, your Google My Business page will pop up. And so you'll already get found much more easily. So go and set that up if you haven't done it already. And you can create reviews there, which gives you that social proof, which is really powerful. So Google My Business is brilliant. Absolutely go and do that after this episode. And there's tools like Canva now is brilliant. I created a website with my daughter. It took us an hour. So she was doing it and I was just kind of guiding her a little bit. An hour. It was like a presentation, and then you can publish it as a website. So that was a very quick and easy way to get a website up and running. And if you were just starting out, I would recommend start there, because you don't want to invest too much time, too much money, too many resources. Unless you have an online business selling things online, then you can get started quickly and learn what information people need, what they want from you, grow your presence, grow your content with your audience. So if you are starting your very first website for your very first business, especially if you haven't got clients yet, do something very simple like that. You can buy your domain name, because Canva is going to give you a really long domain name that is definitely not memorable even by yourself. So you want to have a domain name and point that domain name to your Canva website. It's very simple to do. It's just a simple redirect. And then you'll have your equivalent of melittacampbell.com or your business name. Point that to your Canva website. Hey, presto, you can be up and running in as little as an hour or two. So there are other websites that are quite famous for helping you create a simple templated website, like Squarespace, Wix, WordPress, GoDaddy. There are a lot of options out there. Personally, I haven't used these templated websites. I always get someone else to do my website for me, but my website is a little bit more complicated these days anyway, and I just do not like doing the tech. It drives me crazy. But if you are just starting out and you don't have the resources, then you can go and check out those. So my big advice would be start simple and you can build on your website as you go. My very first website was just a welcome, Melitta Campbell, communication services. I do, bullet point of what I did, contact me here. That was it. No pictures, no nothing. People liked it though, because they were like, I don't have to waste time figuring out what you do. And then I built it out from there. Then I had the stock photos, then I had a rubbish photo, then I had an actual professional photo of me on there. Then I built out a page for each of those services. Then I started to have some tools and resources that people could download for free that would also help with SEO and being found and all of that kind of thing. Then I had like forms and all sorts of things on there. So it built over time, but I didn't have a website the first 2 years of my first business, at least. And then it was simple, but start simple and grow from there. So the next question, which kind of follows on, what advice for beginners do you have who want to do it for themselves? I'm starting my first website. What content needs to be on there? There were a lot of questions from you on this kind of topic. So we have covered a lot of this already, but I want to add, before you start your website, have something to sell. I have had conversations with people who want help to create their first website, but they don't know who their ideal clients are. They don't have something specific to sell yet. They have a rough idea, but it's not clear. And if you can't communicate it simply, then it's not going to work online. If you can't communicate it clearly, then your clients who are learning this information for the first time have got no chance of understanding. So have something to sell first. And equally, this could be an idea. So depending on your business, you may be just selling a concept at this stage, but have something specific that you are selling. Know who your ideal clients are and why they'll benefit from your offer. Understand the problems, the solution as they see it, understand their values, what's important to them. You really, really, really need to get to know your ideal clients as much as you can. And that's going to help you massively, because you'll then know what information they need to have to make the right decision for them and to get that understanding, to build that trust. You need to know your vision and mission, because that's going to be on your homepage. This is why we exist. This is what we do. This is how we help. This is who we help. This is the information that people are going to want to know first. And absolutely, before you begin, know the purpose of your website. What exactly do you want it to do for you? And that may change, but I would give you one is to start a relationship and capture people's email address so that you can nurture that relationship over time. If people come to your website and click away, you don't know who these people are, so you can't build that relationship. So give them a great incentive to join your email list so that you can stay in touch, because only about 3 to 5% of people are ready to buy at any one time. Go and check out my blog post on creating a client journey. There's a 2-part blog post. It's quite comprehensive, and that will give you more information in that respect. But, really know the purpose of your website, and remember, it's a reception desk. You want to welcome people in, introduce them to your brand, help them take that next step with you, and encourage them to leave their contact details with you if they're an ideal client, so that, as I say, you can nurture them over time, turn that visitor into a friend and that friend into a client. So it's important when they come to your website that they understand who you are, that you have the solution to their problem, and that needs to be understandable in an instant and right at the top. I see so many websites and it's a beautiful picture of someone and maybe their name and perhaps like 3 words about something they do that don't mean anything to anyone else but them, and that's the prime real estate wasted. They're on a mission, remember. They put in their question, they've landed on your website. Is this the person that can solve this problem for me? Am I in the right place? Do they work with people like me? Do I like this person? You really need to answer these kind of questions on your homepage before you take them to the next step. And they, right, I'm in the right place. They have a solution. I think I like them. I can see that they've got some credibility, and then help them take that next step with you. So you want all of that information. And I mentioned there the credibility, that trust. This can come from things like an as seen in banner, so they can understand that you are a thought leader, that you're known for your expertise, perhaps some logos relating to your certifications, some awards that you've won, some testimonials from your clients. All of this kind of thing is going to give that social proof, because online, anyone from anywhere can post anything about anything. So you want to make sure that they know that you have the expertise to help them and do what you say you can do and get that solution for them that you've promised. So next question, how do you get a website to come top of online searches? So go back and listen to the last episode, how to get found online, because that was all about how to get found by online searches. But it really comes down to having a quality website that works for humans first. So quality means good images, good writing. It has the right information in the right place. It has links going back and forwards. It's a complete experience. That you have good SEO, search engine optimization, which means that you've got keywords and phrases in all of the right places and nicely filtered through. You haven't stuffed them in, that it works with your content, that you've got backlinks. So that's links from elsewhere on the internet coming to your website, which shows the search engines that you have something valuable to share, because other places on the internet are linking to you. So it shows that you're an authority. And use Google My Business, as I said earlier. That will help you get found, particularly on Google as well. So that's the quick answer. But for the long answer, go and listen to the last episode of this podcast on how to get found online. Ooh, final question, but it's a really juicy, big question. My personal experience, and that of many of my clients, is that writing your own content for the website is hard. You're so close to your business, maybe a bit self-conscious about tooting your own horn. And on top of that, it's easy to get lost in SEO, the latest copywriting trends. So I'd love to hear how you have navigated that. What an amazing question. There is so much in this. I think I may create a podcast episode on this specifically and go into this in a much more structured way, because, as you say, it's a question that a lot of people have. Likewise with how do I create my first website? What should be on there? I'll do that in a separate podcast episode as well. I think it's a question that a lot of you asked. So I think it deserves a bit more space and structure, as I say. But here are my thoughts on that question, creating content and not feeling too self-conscious about that or getting lost in all the different techniques you could be using. So the first thing is feeling conscious about tooting your own horn. Do not toot your own horn. If you go to a website and they're like, hey, I'm amazing, I'm brilliant, do you trust that? Absolutely not. So you don't want to be tooting your own horn, but including, as I mentioned, the credibility. Show the different places where you've been published. Show your achievements, your certifications, testimonials from other people. Don't say you're brilliant. Let other people show that you're brilliant. So that gets around that part. So I wouldn't go around saying it's about tooting your own horn. What I think you may be referring to here is, how do you tell people that you have something valuable? And in that case, you need to remember, it's not about you. It's not about your experience. It's not about what you do or anything about that. It's how you solve your clients' problems. What do you do for them? They come to your website, they're on a mission. Can this person solve my problem? You have to tell them that. You can't pussyfoot around it. You have to say, I can solve your problem. And you have to be confident that you can do that. So there's this self-consciousness of tooting your own horn, and there's self-confidence knowing you have the tools to help people. And if you have the tools to help people who have a problem that they want solved, then you're being selfish if you don't tell people this information. If you don't say, I can solve this problem for you. If this is you, this is how you feel right now, if this is what you're struggling with, if this is how you would love your life to be, then I do have the solution. I believe it's in this, that, and the other. And this is how it works. This is what it feels like to work together. This is the journey we're going to go on. And then you have your credibility, your testimonials, your certificates, all that kind of thing, so that they can say, oh, okay, she has been confident about what she's putting out there. That makes logical sense. They've talked about my problem and that made emotional sense. You need that emotion and logic working together. I've got a free training on that you can get. If you go to my website, it's the very first link that you'll find. There's free training on how to create your next client. And in that, I'm talking all about how to marry the emotion and the logic so you can start to sell without selling and present the value of your offer to your clients. So if you haven't followed that training, go and check that out. melittacampbell.com, first link on the website. It will take you to that free training. It's about, I think it's about 45, 50 minutes long. It talks about how to find your next client online, but it was really telling you is how you can communicate your value to your clients so you can sell without selling, you can build relationships, build that trust and credibility, and all without being self-conscious, because you'll realize it's not about you, it's all about them. So that's the first part of tooting your own horn. The next part is sharing your story. So usually the most popular page on any website is the About Me page. They want to know who you are. Who is this person? They can solve my problem. It feels like I'm in the right place, but do I feel like I will connect with this person? So in sharing your story, it's really important that you share just the parts that are relevant for your ideal client, and you help them see their situation in what you do. And maybe you have, very often, in fact, people start a business because they've had a particular problem, they found a solution, it worked for them, and now they want more people to have access to that solution. So share that story, because if they can see their story in your story, their problems in your problems, they can start to see, oh, this could be possible for me too. They start to build that hope that the solution you're proposing could work for them. So share your story. If you really find this difficult, get someone else to write it for you. You can find copywriters that can do a great job of this for you. And then you just need to check that as you're reading it through, read it from the point of view of your ideal client. Would they see themselves in your story? Would they relate to you? Do they get the information that they need to make a decision about, am I willing to take that next step with this person? So let them see your situation in your content and your story. And then you want to provide them with quick information to help them now, and invite them to get more information to help them take that next step. So this can be offering them demos. It can be sharing case studies, giving them a free trial, maybe invite them to a free coaching call with you, something that's going to help them take that next step, sort of risk-free. They're coming a little bit closer. So you want to help them to understand what exactly is it going to feel like to work with you. So depending on what kind of business you have, if it's a product business, maybe it's a free sample pack that you send them so they can try out your creams, or free trial of your software, whatever it may be. Think about what would be that next step, that sort of product prospects where they can try it on for size, see if it fits for them. So you want to then focus on giving them the information that they need to make a confident decision as to whether to take that next step with you. If you're feeling self-conscious about your content, hopefully that's helped you to see that don't be. It's not about you. It's all about your clients. It's all about serving them, giving them the information they need, introducing yourself politely, starting to build that relationship with them, building some rapport, a bond with them, inviting them to that next step, making that next step feel logical. You know, if you're running up the stairs, it's very simple. If you go one step at a time, that feels really easy and natural. If you're pushing people to jump like 3 steps at a time, it's possible, but it feels a bit of a stretch. It doesn't feel so comfortable. So think about baby steps. What would be that next logical step for them to provide them with more information, more understanding of what you do, and so on. In terms of copywriting trends, so I've been involved in communication for 3 decades, and I don't feel that what works in terms of copywriting has changed at all. So you need a clear purpose. And if you're struggling to write anything, it's usually because you don't know why you're writing it. And you have to have a purpose for your writing. Otherwise, it's just hot air and you're just wasting your time and your client's time. It's not going to serve anyone. So you have to start with that clear purpose. You have to know your audience. And I've said this several times already. You really need to get to know them. You need to know what conversation they're already having in their mind, so you can join that conversation and help them to move forward in some way. So sometimes it's a shift in their thinking. They're stuck where they are because there's something missing, and you can provide that and help shift them and help them move forward through that next stage. Keep it simple. Don't get overcomplicated. Don't get fancy. No one's got time for fancy. Don't make them think. That's really the key thing online, and in any communication really, but online especially. Don't make them think. Make everything simple, logical, easy to follow. Keep it on purpose. Keep it focused on them all the way through. Now, what helps with all of that is to have a plan, to think this through beforehand. As we were talking about with the recipe, it's much easier if you have all the ingredients, you know how it's all going to come together, and then you get started. It's simpler for you, simple for them. If you are finding your copywriting hard, then take a step back, because if it's hard for you, it may be that you're still in that space where this is too complicated. And if it's complicated for you, it's going to be way more complicated for your clients who don't have any context about your solution at all. So if it feels difficult, take a step back. Why is this difficult? How can it be simpler? Have a purpose, know your audience, keep it simple. And as I said earlier on, have something valuable to offer. It may sound really obvious, but the majority of people I meet and have conversations with who are struggling with their website have something valuable to offer, but that's not packaged in some clear way yet. So make sure you have that thing to sell first, even if it's an idea that you're selling, as I say, rather than a specific product or service. Either way, you're still selling it, but that has to be packaged clearly in order for you to sell it and for them to think, yes, I want to buy that and buy that specific thing. So that's my take on that. I say, I think this is going to be worth diving into deeper in a future podcast episode. So I will work on that. So keep your eyes open, subscribe to the podcast to make sure you don't miss that when it comes up. But hopefully that's given you enough information to get started with. If you have any questions on any of this, then do reach out and ask me. You can find me at melittacampbell.com. Just put Melitta Campbell into anything, into Google, into any social media platform, not TikTok, Instagram, I'm not so active there, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook especially. Come and find me, reach out, ask your questions. I'm always happy to help. And make sure you get that free training. It's a bundle of masterclasses and the recordings of these podcasts all around how to get found online, how to create your first website, what do you do in order to stand out online. That particular training is more global than just online, but it's really going to help you online as well. And there's a few other little bits and pieces in there for you. So right now I've bundled those together and it's free, but only until Monday. So go and get that day, melittacampbell.com/web. So make sure you get that, and that's the perfect thing to do over the Christmas holidays and come back fighting in the new year. So I hope you found that valuable. Now, there were some questions I haven't answered today because they were too technical. It's not really my expertise. So I am currently working on my technical director. He's an expert in online digital marketing. So I'm going to invite him on. Hopefully he's going to say yes, and I'm going to put those questions to him. So if he says yes, that will be the next episode. So look out for that next week. I can be very persuasive. So let's say yes, he's going to do it. So look out for that episode next week. And in the meantime, I've been your host, Melitta Campbell, award-winning business coach, best-selling author, and value whisperer. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.